Yes. Pokémon Emerald. The only game that makes you glaze Gen 3 even more. Hoenn is easily my favorite region in Pokemon, but that's solely because of Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Probably because it's the first game I ever played, but you kinda get the point. So you're probably surprised that even though I've been playing a lot of the older Pokemon games recently, I still haven't bothered to play any of the other Gen 3 games, despite my love for the Hoenn region. Well, that changes today, because now I am going to tell y'all the story of my first playthrough of Pokémon Emerald. You see, in Pokemon, there's a decision when you make ever since you've played your first ever Pokemon game. What starter you pick? You see, I picked Mudkip on my first ever playthrough of Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, and I've picked him every single other time I've played the game. And I've never bothered with any of the other two, because I couldn't care less about them. I still thought they were good starters, but they would come nowhere near my GOAT Mudkip. But today, I finally decided to change it up, because I finally decided to pick someone else, and that ends up being Torchic, and I decided to name him Popeyes. I won a close one against May, but obviously I feel awful since I'm beating up the greatest Pokemon of all time. After a bit of progression, I already get my second team member, a Shroomish that I named- oh wait, shit, I named him Jimmy J. Well, I'll change that to what it's supposed to be in a couple minutes. I easily beat the first Aqua Grunt with no troubles, and now I am in Rustboro City, and then after some grinding, I take on Roxanne. I honestly win with Jimmy J quite easily, even though the Nosepass took eons to take out, so due to this uninteresting fight, I'll discuss why I'm using rare candies in my playthrough. I don't like grinding at all, and especially in old Pokemon games where it's probably just gonna take hours just to properly level my team, I just don't feel like doing all that. At the end of the day, I am doing what I find run, and I don't think massacring the Hoenn Pokemon population for hours across the playthrough is very fun. After that lackluster fight, I still decided that I should take on the optional May battle for fun, even though I was completely oblivious to her actually decent team, and knowing damn well my team hasn't really performed the best thus far. Her lead Torkoal just spammed Curse though, so I did have to switch to Ember after a bit. After a bit, he finally goes for a new move, which is Smog, but after that, I crit my Ember, and then he misses a Smog, and due to this, I'm easily able to take it out. From there, I can easily kill Mudkip with Jimmy J and win the fight. Luckily, that's the last time I have to murder my goat. But this optional battle actually ends up rewarding me in a way, because Popeyes evolves into Combuskin right after the fight. From there, I have to head to Dewford to be a good errand boy and give a letter to Stephen Stone, but while in Granite Cave, I pick up my third team member, Tetanus the Aeron. Listen, I couldn't think of a better name, so that's all I got. You'll see later that I'm not very good at these nicknames. I think Popeyes is probably the best one here, and that's kinda saying something. Anyways, Tetanus won't be that useful against this next fight, which is Brawly. I led with Popeyes, who bodies both Machop and the stupid Meditite that doesn't know how to click a move that isn't Focus Punch. And then after that, I swapped to the appropriately named Jimmy John on Makuhita. And no, he isn't named after that stupid sandwich business that apparently sucks. Anyways, I set up a Stun Spore and Leech Seed, and then I just spammed Mega Drain as I got good RNG. But then I kinda got bored of that, so I just sent out Tetanus for shits and giggles, who actually just ended up dying to a crit Vital Throw. That's unfortunate, but then Popeyes easily takes the kill with a singular double kick after that, due to Makuhita's pitiful HP. Now it's time for the speedrun killer fight itself, 110 May. I easily take out Lombre with Popeyes, and then Marshtomp easily dies at the hands of Jimmy John, which then just leaves a Slugma, so Popeyes is free to double kick it and kill it. Not so scary after all, huh? Now it's time to head for my third gym badge, so I head to Mauville and then stomp on Wally's Hopes and Dreams with a singular Ember. But unfortunately, because I don't have Marshtomp, Watson isn't going to be piss easy. I lead with Tetanus into his bomb, and he also takes out the following Electrike after a bit. But then it's time for the problem Pokemon. I swap to Popeyes on Magaton, and I get off a huge double kick before I decide to risk the crit for a chance to get the kill. But of course, I end up getting crit. Thanks. After that unfortunate death, I go to Tetanus, but surprisingly, Watson doesn't heal his magnets, so a Mud Slap is actually able to kill. But now his ace hits the field, who I expected to be pretty hard. But surprisingly enough, Jimmy John cleanly 1v1'd him, despite the Thunder Wave paralysis that he gave to Jimmy John immediately. After that badge win, I now have to make a long trek across the region to stop Team Magma from kidnapping the scientist, and also to activate the Maxie fight. And at this point, I was questioning what was up with this game. I've beaten every obstacle that was supposed to be so hard quite easily thus far, so now I have a lot of confidence. But if I've learned anything about blind Pokemon playthroughs, it's that you should never be overconfident, and this Maxie fight humbled me in an instant. My Niantic was a freebie, but then Camerupt came out. Not only was he tanky, he also decided to land a magnitude 8 to wipe my chicken off the planet, and then I had to go to my Swablu that I recently caught in a Nimbus to put him to sleep after tanking a nasty hit. Due to him taking a nap, I decided to go to Jimmy John, but he missed his Sleech Seed as the Camel woke up now. I hoped a Mach Punch would still kill, but of course it didn't, and he healed back up, and just as I was going to grab the kill, this bastard swaps to Zubat. Tetanus slowly took it out and then dies to Camerupt, which left Jimmy John with finishing off for real this time. But you have to consider, if I didn't high roll this incoming Mach Punch, that was a clean wipe. So now after heading down to Lava Ridge, I was really scared of Flannery. And I already knew it was going to be hard, but I wasn't expecting it to be this bad. I actually almost won on my first attempt, but I still ended up taking a slight loss. Yeah, that's not the last wipe of this run. For attempt 2, Numel somehow needed 3 whole team members to die, and then Camerupt hits the floor. The same Pokemon that just caused me problems 5 seconds ago. I get off a Mach Punch before Jimmy John unfortunately dies to an overheat, but then from there I do something really stupid. I decide to send out Tetanus, who obviously dies quite easily, and then also my HM Slave, with no progress made at all. Due to all my team members basically being dead, I just kinda have to bite the bullet with Popeyes. After a clean double click puts him into red, and with Flannery not healing him, I decided to start to set up after I found out he really couldn't hit me before a crit made me send it. I hit through a track to kill Camerupt, code the Slugma, and then I land a huge crit for my Durst double kick on Torkoal to give me a close victory. I'm not sure if that mattered or not, but a win is a win. Before fighting Norman, I catch a Boltoy in the desert that I named Orbit. Only one more team member to go, but this guy actually took quite a bit of time, despite the catch rate not being that low. I meant encounter rate. With my father now being in front of me, I know it's going to be a tough fight. And yet again, I pick up a narrow loss on attempt 1. But for attempt 2, I realized the error of my ways, so this time I have a much redder run. Against Spinda, I set up a bulk up before wiping off the planet, which then leads to a nice clean sweep. I got a huge snap out against Vigoroth, and because Linoon's AI will always set up Belly Drum, I'm easily able to take the kill with double kick from there. Even though I still could have kept Popeyes in, I still decided to go to Jimmy John immediately, to stall out with Leech Seed and Mach Punch to get me a pretty easy 5th badge. And now that I can surf, I can finally get my final and most important team member, Angler the Carvana. You'll see how good she is later, but just keep in mind this was worth the 15 minutes figuring out the fishing system and actually getting the encounter itself. From there, I believe I head to see Mauville for the Ice Beam TM, which is why I got lost in the sea apparently. On my way to Winona, I also encounter Steven Sohn, but unfortunately, he's not going to send me an island to get a free Mega Legendary. Then I wipe the floor with Shelly and the Institute, and also an easy fight against May on the bridge, which was actually quite surprising to me. I head to Fortree now, and after getting some silly goggles, I can now take on Winona. Her gym trainers weren't that easy, so I'm expecting another challenging fight as usual with this woman. Swablu was easy pickings, but somehow Tropius brought Popeyes down to 27 by the time I killed it, so now I don't have anything for the incoming Skarmory. I then had to have a 10-year-long chip battle with the Skarmory with Tetanus before he finally dies and think everything that Winona didn't heal when she really should have. Luckily after that, the fight is pretty easy. Nimbus bodies the inferior Altaria, and then also the Pelipper afterwards. But now it's time for a lot of things to happen before Badge 7. I wipe the floor with my rival for the final time. I raid Mount Pyre and take care of Team Aqua, and then I head to the Mega HQ. Maxie awakens Groudon, but luckily his fight was really easy unlike the last time, mainly because I have Angler to watch away the camel. And then after that, I proceed to easily wipe the floor with the Aqua base. And then finally, I can head to Moss Deep for my 7th Gym badge against Tayna Liza, which is actually a really scary fight in this game, But before I get into details, I do want to mention, in case I didn't do this already, or I didn't, that I am guessing these level caps, because I thought it would be a fun game of over or under leveling for the next fight. But looking back, I should have just done what I did in White 2, and just write down the caps, and then use those. Anyways, I won't go into as much detail here, because doubles are pretty annoying to explain. I led with Angler and Nimbus, and they both focus on the Pokemon in front of them. Angler kept biting and baiting out heals, while Nimbus used Dragon Breath and Sing against Claydol. Xatu obviously inevitably dies first, so in comes Lunatone, which I then focus my attention to as Claydol takes a nap. Unfortunately, I miss out on a Claydol kill, and he proceeds to wake up and gets healed, but at least Lunatone dies the same turn. After a bit against Claydol and Solrock, I decide to swap out Nimbus due to him being quite low. Luckily, he still got a nice paralysis off. Once Orbit hits the ground, I full focus Claydol before I decide to just kill the Solrock instead, and then from there, I Hyper Beam and Angler using Surf and Crunch killed the Claydol to give me a pretty clean badge 7 that I think I planned out pretty damn well. But before I can continue my mission of becoming the league champion, I kinda have to save the world real quick. Nothing too difficult. The Space Center was something I thought would be forgettable, but then it turned into a whole 7-minute debacle. I'll spare the details, but I got really unlucky with RNG, Steven was useless, and Angler's early death made this a lot more miserable than it should have been. After that, I decided to head to C4 Cavern. And despite just playing through Hoenn not that long ago, I forgot all the puzzles and spent a bit figuring them out again, because yes, I am a very smart individual. But now it's time to take down Archie, and wait, it's just the exact same Maxie fight, but he just has a Sharpedo instead. That's also light work to take out. Boring! But now with Kyogre and Groudon awakened, I actually have to save the world now. And yes, me, a 10-year-old child, has to do that, because God forbid the champion has a freaking brain and does something for once. I know I just sarcastically called myself a smart individual, but I think Wallace might just be the stupidest person alive, because he's asking a 10-year-old child where Rayquaza is. Like, are we stupid? I summoned Rayquaza, and then watched the cutscene, and just like that, I already saved the world, just by climbing an old tower and wake up a stupid green snake. This is why I love Pokemon. Anyways, it's time to push for that champion title now, and the first step in doing that is getting my final gym badge. And this was kind of a pain in the ass. Shora's Love Disc, Wishcash, and Crawdad all drop like flies, and despite some troubles, Celia is also pretty easy. But it's actually just this Kingdra alone that decides to randomly whip out an ice move on my Altaria, which then just completely fucks over my plans. Luckily, I was able to get a Leech Seed off with Jimmy John before he dies, but oh my goodness, this is still going to be a pain in the ass. Because as I sub in Angler, of course the first Ice Beam has to freeze her. But because she's the GOAT, she immediately thaws out. Which then leads to her almost taking the kill, but of course the second I get to do that, this dipshit clicks rest. After a couple more turns of Kingdra taking a nap, I finally take it out with some crunches. Fuck you, Hoenn. Anyways, it's time to make my way to the Pokemon League. Wally tries to be awesome with his last stand, but unfortunately he doesn't have a sick background, a battle theme, or a Mega in Gen 3, so what's the point of him existing? I don't care, it's still a good moment, even though it was just me putting belt to ass with my shark. After spending far too long in the damn caverns, I have now arrived at the Pokemon League. Let's become Hoenn champions, shall we? I'm just gonna be honest though, Sydney and Phoebe were both so annoyingly free that I'm just gonna skip over them. I have one Pokemon that just decimates most of their team, Popeyes for Sydney and the Angler for Phoebe, and then once they got low, I just swapped them out and just used the rest of my team to beat up the remaining Mons on both of the opposing teams. But Glacia actually decided to show up, and also I apologize for the sudden quality dip, because I decided to edit all these fights, because I decided to record and edit all these fights for some reason, but I never made the video public, because I couldn't be bothered to check for editing mistakes in a half an hour long video that nobody will watch, so I don't know why I decided to do this. I take out Celia with ease, but then Walrein comes out, and I try to get a Leaf Seed off, but I actually end up failing miserably. Angler does some really great chip and picks up a Spadef drop before Walrein kills her. Walrein wipes Tetanus off the face of the earth, but Nimbus actually hits a Sing, but still ends up doing nothing with it, besides a quick little fly chip. But all this chip over all these Pokemon is to lay up Popeyes to a nice clean double kick kill. But because all my Pokemon are basically dead now, I kinda have to rely on Popeyes to solo the rest of the fight now. Luckily, I have a perfect opportunity after Glalie barely lives, which means I can set up a bulk up. And then after that, I can now easily one-shot the rest of her Pokemon to a clean victory. Finally, for the Elite Four is Aubrey Graham. And I decide to lead with Angler. Thanks to his Spit F drop, 2 crunches kill Shelgon. I then swap to Orbit, who now knows Ice Beam for all this guy's Pokemon that are 4x weak to Ice. First up was Altaria, who left him with half, but still ended up dying to the wrath of Ice Beam. Kingdra randomly comes out, so I swap to Nimbus, but I actually end up getting some insane luck. I got a paralysis on my first Dragon Breath, Kingdra continued to spam Dragon Dust for no reason, and Drake also decided to not heal, so Kingdra ends up dying quite easily. Luckily, Orbit is now back to spamming Ice Beam, and Mr. HG is the next victim, but he does rip a crit flamethrower that leaves Orbit as 3 before he dies. Once Salamence comes in, due to Orbit's low HP, I decide to go to Nimbus. But luckily for me, he gets yet another first turn paralysis, and also gets another Dragon Breath off before dying, which leaves Salamence with pitiful HP. But luckily, thanks to the Citrus Berry that Drake has on Salamence, Drake's AI won't see a healing opportunity, and Orbit is able to outspeed and take the kill with an Ice Beam now. Nice and easy Elite Four. I mean, wow, this game got a lot easier ever since Norman. No wipes, and my only challenges weren't even due to difficulty, rather just simple inconvenience. But in the back of my mind, Wallace still kinda scared me. I mean, my only super effective counter to him is Breloom, and most of his team still gets, and then the rest of my team mostly gets bodied by water. But to be honest, I still thought that wouldn't be too bad. Yeah, sure, I wouldn't win a 10-1 as expected, but it wasn't a normal loss. I got fucking manhandled. Little did I know after that, I would spend 7 grueling attempts getting a plan that needs quite a bit of luck and figuring out the movesets like a real man. But I also had to figure out what matchups worked. I'd say by attempt 3, I had a plan that somewhat could work, but all of these following attempts after that were just pain and agony of my plan not working. I felt like I could never win the fight. I needed too much luck. I felt like I wasn't making progress. I always get down to 2 Pokemon, but by the time I got there, I would lose all my resources, or luck would screw over a beautiful start. That stupid rabbit was right after all roads lead to Rome. But finally, on attempt 8, I managed to find the road that didn't lead to my ultimate failure, and instead, to a miraculous victory. So, here is that attempt. Against Wailord, I knew my best lead would be Orbit. He ain't doing shit in this fight, so I always led with him attempt 3 onwards. I used Psychic as Water Spout brought Orbit down to 35. I then had to hope for a Blizzard Miss, but of course it doesn't happen, and Orbit ends up dying. But luckily, he still got a Spit F drop on the Psychic I used before his death. From there, Angler was easily able to chomp that whale to death. Ludicolo comes out next, probably the most infuriating Pokemon to kill due to double team spam with my inaccurate flies, but I get the best outcome in this encounter. I hit 2 high rolling flies as Ludicolo only uses double team, and also an airbolt surf. Tentacruel is next, the Pokemon that has caused me probably the most bad RNG across these attempts. My guy for this is probably not who you think, it's actually Popeyes. I use Strength as Toxic comes out onto me, and then I decide to use Double Kick to not bait out of heal, but of course I crit one, so it doesn't matter. But his Hydro Pump ended up missing, which means that this attempt still had the potential to be somewhat decent. I get 2 clean strengths off before his second attempt at a Hydro Pump ends up connecting, ensuring Popeye's deaths. But because of his pitiful health now, Nimbus is easily able to take the kill with a Dragon Breath. Now in comes Milotic, and I haven't tried this before because she's usually dead by now, but I decide to send out Angler and pray for some luck. And holy crap that I did get some luck. The first crunch crit as a Toxic came in, the second crunch did some solid damage as the Surf does big damage, and the third crunch also did some nice damage as Angler falls. But my Milotic is very low, so I have to try to send it with Jimmy John. I have to live an Ice Beam and not miss a Sky Uppercut, and somehow, that's exactly what ended up happening. In comes Whiscash now, and even though I have a Pokemon that is at 39 HP, I kinda have Mega Drain, which can easily out-heal me enough to tank this guy's Hyper Beams with ease, and plus Wallace decides to waste a heal on him before I inevitably kill the stupid Wish Cache. I have 3 Pokemon, Wallace has 1, and it's Gyarados. Jimmy John being alive is probably the only reason I can actually win this now, because of Leech Seed, which I set up turn 1 as he Dragon Dances. Jimmy dies next turn due to Hyper Beam, but holy fuck did he lock in once he came out against my Milotic. Unfortunately, Tetanus isn't able to get off a Rock Tomb before she dies, which is quite unfortunate. I have went from 3 Pokemon down to 1 pretty quickly, huh? Gyarados is in yellow, and I just have to hope and pray he doesn't use Hyper Beam now. He uses Surf to start it off, and I do good damage with a Dragon Breath, but Wallace decides to heal after a Leech Seed chip puts him into a range. But I did end up getting probably the most important stroke of luck throughout this entire fight. A paralysis with my Dragon Breath, which now gives me a chance to actually win this thing. Because now I can spam Fly, and as I can try to avoid attacks as I stall out the Gyarados to death. But once I come down from Fly number 2, he decides to use the one move I was scared of this entire time, Hyper Beam. But guess what? Nothing came out of Gyarados' mouth because he missed, leading to my Dragon Breath winning for the finishing blow, and now I am the champion of Hoenn. And this was my reaction. Holy fuck. Holy fuck. Yes! Yes! Let's go! Finally! Yes! 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 I finally beat it! Oh my god! 8 attempts! I am now the champion of Hoenn. I have finally reached the Hall of Fame, and this playthrough has been rough, but I'm still happy I had fun with it, despite that fight being miserable to get past. As I watch the credits though, I know damn well my job isn't finished. I had a nice little goal after beating the game, that I wanted to catch all 3 of the Weather Trio legendaries to end this playthrough on a nice note. So that's what I set out to do. First up was Groudon, who was easily the hardest one to catch, surprisingly. He had Rest and spammed it, and also had low PP. There was only one attempt where I accidentally killed him. Every single other one was just me chucking balls and praying. Obviously I was using all statuses I could and trying to keep him low, but Rest makes that a huge problem, which leads to this catch taking forever. In fact, it took me one less attempt than my Wallace runs, because it takes me 7 whole attempts to get it done. But finally, at the end of attempt 7, I slowed down my emulator for shits and giggles, and then this happens. 1, 2, 3. Yes! Finally! Holy fuck! Finally got this stupid fucking Pokemon! Yes! That's why Kyogre's better. Fuck you. 1 down, 2 to go. Surely Kyogre won't be worse, right? Well, I think I'll just let myself speak here. I just one-balled the Kyogre. I wasn't recording. Because I didn't think I'd catch it. That's why Kyogre's the GOAT. They can never make me hate you. They can never make me hate him. That is diabolical luck, but okay. That is also proof that Kyogre is better, like I said in both of those clips. Anyways, it's time for the big green lizard, who also has Rest and... Oh, come on, you thought I wouldn't use a Master Ball here? Of course! I will. The more interesting part was actually suffering while climbing Sky Pillar. I tried for 10 minutes on each floor before switching to slowdown, but even once I did switch down to slowdown on both of these floors, I still spent another 10 or 15 minutes trying to get it down. So that concludes my playthrough of Pokémon Emerald, and now it's time for my overall thoughts on the game. Alright, I think I just found a new addition to my top tier Pokemon games, because I love this game for all the same reasons I love ORAS so much. The region, Pokemon, the stupid evil teams, awesome legendaries. Hoenn has it all for me, and I don't think there's another region that will ever dethrone Hoenn as my favorite. And no, there's not too much water. I have no idea why some people actually think that is a legit criticism. I think I'll actually get into specific differences that led me liking this game so much. The gym leaders are way harder than in any other Hoenn game, and I love that. The only original team that kinda compares to the Emerald one is Norman, due to his 2 slackings in Ruby and Sapphire. The more evil team interactions in this game, and the inclusion of both of them being evil, is awesome. It makes so much more sense than the Ruby and Sapphire versions of the plot, and it just makes me happy. Plus, Team Magma doesn't have a base in the fucking sea, and Groudon doesn't live in an underwater cavern. The climax of the plot is also pretty solid. While I don't think summoning Rayquaza is as cinematic as catching a primal legendary in terms of saving the world, I think it's still a great way to include Rayquaza into the game nevertheless. There's obviously many other differences, but I'd like to keep this short, and also because this is a 40-minute recording, so I'll just mention those 2, and plus I do want to mention my 2 nitpicks. One of them is legendary catching. Sure, I get you want to gatekeep Rayquaza, but did you have to make it that hard to access? But honestly, Sky Pillar is nothing compared to the Regis that I didn't even bother to try to do, because whatever the fuck those puzzles are, I do not want to bother with. And my other nitpick actually doesn't matter that much at all, but why the hell does nearly every trainer I battle with go into my Pokénav call list? I don't give a shit that Isabelle won a battle with her random Minun. Please shut up and stop calling me. There's actually good uses of the Pokénav calling in the game with additional dialogue through it, but being interrupted while just walking around in peace just to mash A annoyed the living shit out of me. But that's about it. Overall, Pokémon Emerald is easily one of the best Pokémon games, and I'm happy I finally played it. If I had to score it, and this is a real shocker from a Gen 3 fanboy, but I'd give this game a 10. It's basically perfect, and it's aged so well over the years. Obviously, not so much the Gen 3 paddle mechanics, but that's obvious and also isn't a fair critique to knock the game for at all. So yeah, that's the end. Thanks for watching. Peace. Holy fuck, my voice hurts.